special guest. We have Benjamin Watts with us, or otherwise known as Caveat Magister.
So I've been asked to say a few words about psychomagic. Let's first start by just talking about what psychomagic is in the first place. Psychomagic as a term was coined by Alejandro Jodorowsky.
Welcome to Shared Dreams.
Welcome back to Shared Dreams, where our dreams are shared. This is episode 2. My name is Hunter. I will be, leading this episode. Again, we have 3 topics that we're going to discuss. Topic 1. So this is from chapter 1 of Magister's text. What do you seek? Not the name of the chapter, but that's the name of our topic. And so it sort of breaks down why do people actually go to bars. It looks into all the reasons why someone would say that they go to a bar. So whether it's to get drunk or have drinks or hang out with friends, but all these things that anyone would answer of why they go to the bars is often something that can be easier or cheaper or done without going actually attending to the bars. So it's a lot easier. It's a lot cheaper to buy drinks if you don't go to the bars. It's a lot easier to hang out with friends at home. All these things, and so whether you admit it or not, many people say that it's for these reasons, and it doesn't really make sense. And so Magister breaks down the idea that people actually go for the experience of something spontaneous happening. So it's not to get drunk, it's not to get lucky with someone and go home. All these things can be done in other ways and easier ways. The quote from the text that really resonated with us was, over time I've come to see nightlife as being a kind of spiritual pilgrimage. The quest for a bar experience is a quest for the Holy Grail. We go to the club hoping to have a miraculous encounter, to be part of moments that cannot be recreated. So my question to the group, and I truly thought about this after reading this chapter, because I've never really considered why I actually go to the bars, because like we said, all those things can be done in other ways. But so if you do go to the bars or clubs, which I think everyone in this group does, why do you go, and what are you truly seeking after reading this text? Or what do you think you were truly seeking prior to reading about this? And now that you've sort of reconsidered with Magister's sort of philosophy on it, why do you think you go to the bars?
So I think this is a really interesting topic, and I remember when I actually read this in the text, I was very fascinated by Magister's approach to sort of dissecting it. And though I think in many ways I do agree with what Magister's saying, in that, people go for the spontaneous nature of bars, I think personally, though, I disagree in terms of my life. And I think a big reason why I go to bars, and yes, I can get drinks at home for cheaper, I can hang with my friends at home.
Yeah.
But I think there's a sort of, especially in our age in university, a social obligation to go to the bars, to maintain the relationships we have with people. You need to go to the bars because that's where everyone goes. So I think it's more of a widespread issue. Everyone goes to the bars because that's where they see their friends, and that's where they really get to maintain and establish, social relationships. So I think, though I might not always want to go to the bars, that's why I mostly find myself there, not in not seeking something spontaneous necessarily.
So it's not the bar that's getting you there; it's the fact that everyone's doing it. Like,
it's the fact
if
that
everyone decided to go on like a run at night, everyone's going on the run.
Exactly, I would go on the run.
Well, and everyone goes to the street on St. Patrick's Day.
Right,
It's not
what
a bar;
it is.
it's a street.
It's the idea of social gathering.
What I would add to that is, so think during COVID, gatherings, like even COVID when gatherings weren't super strict, like take when they're 25 or 50, there's still people that I like and want to talk to, but I wouldn't necessarily have them over to my house for drinks. And I kind of miss them. There's about a year I didn't see some of these people straight, or maybe you see them once at some mutual friends, but the bar is such a good place to have 300 people at. And you're going to get to see people that, again, you can't hang out at home and see your friends at home and have a drink at home. But if that's all I did, I might hang out with 20 pops.
Right.
And that's fine. But there's a lot of people you kind of miss out on. And friends that now, I know we've all gained very closeness to in one shape or another. Like, not with each other, but with someone at least. That we probably started meeting going out. And then now we'll hang out with them at home and have drinks for cheaper. But
which is sort of that spontaneous aspect of it.
So exactly, yeah. So I argue that I do go for the spontaneousness of it. Like, I'll go out at night. Tonight I'm gonna go out. I have no idea what's gonna happen. Probably know the bar sets on fire. Either way, that's spontaneous. I certainly hope it doesn't now. That would be awkward. But the point is, like, I know the general group of people.
Yeah.
But there's going to be people there that I haven't talked to in 6 months that I see. There's going to be a funny thing that happens. There's going to be just things that you kind of need to have a bunch of people happen.
Yeah, and to tag along with that, like, if you think about the next morning after like a big night out, you don't talk about like, you rarely talk about like how many drinks you had, like all those things that you can get at home, like, oh, like I was with my friends, whatever. Yeah. You're talking about the most random thing that happened in the night.
So the last night I went out, I went to someone's fridge and took a bite out of a stick.
Yeah.
And
that's what you'll remember from the night.
And that is what I remember. I don't remember,
we didn't talk about like friends, drinks, sex, whatever.
Yeah. That was just for whatever reason my mind told me to do that. And now that's a funny story that we have.
But like,
because whatever, that's
the
it's
night.
just and that was
and that's
it's those little spontaneous things that happen.
Whether you knew it or not, you might have been seeking that exact moment.
And I feel like the spontaneous moments are like the best moments, because like that's why I like to go out, is because of those moments where I meet new people, like experience new events. Whereas like when I go out and I experience the same night over and over again, when I talk to the same people,
you're bored.
It's a boring time. I don't have as much fun. So the reason why I go to bars is for those spontaneous moments.
When going out becomes a routine, it's no longer
exactly. You see the same people, talk to the same people.
I think the bars, like a good time at the bars when like you get a bit of liquid courage, and then there's that like spontaneous like thing that you don't normally do. It's different.
Right. Like even your own behavior.
Like you see people who are the most like calm, like I don't even know what I'm trying to introverts, like, who don't really like make their like go out of their way to like make a huge social gathering or anything like that. But like they get a little liquid courage and some spontaneous attitude. It's like everything can change, and then just like random things happen.
Look, I'll surprise myself. Sometimes I'll see or do something, then in my head, am I doing this right now? This is unlikely.
Everyone has some good ones, and then there's some bad ones. But like you live and you learn.
Yeah. All right. On to topic 2. So this one's called Beyond the Rubric. It looks at chapter 9 of Magister's text, and the basic premise of it is changing our learning from asking what and why questions to how questions. So Magister was a graduate teaching assistant in a program at Purdue in the School of Liberal Arts. And basically, he dissects the school system as having a lot of flaws in the way that they teach learning, in the way that they aren't looking to actually teach the students, but instead they're just looking to make money, more or less. So they're trying to get students to do the bare minimum that they can to pass, to graduate, for the school to look good, and to make money. So in disagreement with this, Magister went and basically went against everything that every syllabus has ever done, and he completely rearranged it and made it this most confusing, terrible thing that with riddles and biblical texts and everything. And he found that instead of before, where students would simply parrot back to the teacher exactly what they knew they were looking for in order to get that bare minimum to pass the grade, get your diploma, whatever, that students were actually forced to think for themselves and question what they wanted and what they were going to do and bring out their creative side. And he said that a third of the class dropped instantly, obviously, as one would when you're presented with challenges. But he said that the other 2/3 that stayed were actually some of the best students that he's ever seen. They went above and beyond on everything that they did. They actually learned and benefited from the education. He was fired for this, obviously, because he went against the norms of the system and of the education system. He appealed it. He won. And it's sort of become a staple. And with the new form of learning, I know a lot of professors and as university students who see this fall into this trap of it sort of being just like black and white, like you just go and do whatever the professor wants to do. So yeah, my question based on this is, so after 4 years of being a university student, Obviously, there's a lot we can look back on, a lot of courses, a lot of assignments, essays, whatever it may be. Can you reflect on your mindset towards these deliverables? So were you doing what the teacher wanted? Just, you know what, to get the grade, I gotta do this, I'm gonna get this, whatever. And then also along with that, did you fall victim to like simply repeating back to what you knew the professor wanted? And then I have a follow-up one for after, but we'll save that.
Yeah, I guess I can start. I would say in the vast majority of courses and assignments, yes, I did exactly what I knew the professor wanted. I followed the rubric. I followed the instructions to a T. And I think that got me through university and has its own benefits. What I will say is I agree with Magister's approach to giving a more confusing structure to an assignment. This year, actually, in fact, in fourth year, I had a negotiations class that I was taking, where my professor approached things in a similar way. He would provide very little guidance to our assignments, and he would always tell us, imagine you're writing these assignments for you. What would you want to see if you were grading something like this? And I think what that enabled was a lot more creativity from me and my classmates. No two people had the same assignment. We all approached it with a different perspective, and none of us had, an exact rubric or structure we were following. So it created a really interesting experience for me, different than anything I'd done throughout my other 4 years in university. I would say overall it was pretty beneficial, and I am, I think, a supporter of providing less structure to students to create
It
more
also
of a
prevents a lot of
creative
cheating,
environment.
right? Like it would be very hard to
that's true.
cheat on that.
That's true.
assignment.
Yeah, it would be impossible to share with your classmates.
Yeah,
It's
you
so
have a completely
open-ended.
different assignment.
And some courses can facilitate it easier than others. Like for example, like accounting would be
So,
it would be hard for it
yeah.
to make it very open-ended. There are some applications, but
Yeah, but like for example, I was gonna say in our audit class every week we did cases.
Yeah.
And fairly open-ended cases. Now audit's much less numerical, which
Yeah.
became a lot of surprising. It's entirely qualitative.
right.
So you still have the ability to do this. And what I kind of found through university is, and I have to think not my accounting classes, but everything
Yes.
else, is that I would very often spit back exactly what was asked
100%.
for, check off
I
rubric,
agree on
why
that.
wouldn't I?
Yeah.
Except for the classes I was actually interested in.
Yeah.
And then the classes I was actually interested in, and it might be a topic in a class, maybe not an entire class. But the things I'm interested in, I have a lot of opinions on.
Yeah.
And those are the times I might go and challenge the professor, like, oh, I don't really see why this is the case. Like, I kind of thought this. And I was wrong. Or whatever it is.
You learn.
But I found that the amount, if I just was meh with a class, then yeah, just check, done, whatever. But the ones I liked were where I go above it.
And the thing with questioning it, though, like I found myself questioning some class, like you did, classes that I enjoyed. But while questioning it, you almost are worried that you're not going to get a good grade then because you're not doing what you know they exactly want.
Yes.
Exactly. Why question things?
Yeah.
When you know that that's not.
And
what
it's
you're being
such
asked
like
to
a
do.
spiral of like no learning. There's
So-
no learning. The
so-
teacher doesn't learn
yeah.
anything. You don't learn anything.
So that's why I've liked my fourth year more. Fortune of not really needing good grades
Mhm.
has allowed me to kind of have more personal opinion
Right.
on a lot of things. Like back to audit, like I might go and say, see, I disagree. I
Yeah.
don't really think that would be fine. And then we could go talk about it. I might do my assignment supporting a completely different alternative than what I think he was supposed to say.
Right.
But I don't really have that risk anymore. Worst case, I get a 70, a 60, and call it a day. But we don't need grades anymore. So, so I think that once you take away that leverage of not getting a bad grade, it does allow for some.
I agree. And then one last point, I have an example of like professor. So we actually had a coding literacy class, great professor, and he basically presented this project, and there was a million ways to do it. There was very little structure. There was like this fundamental idea of it, and the class struggled, like really struggled to grasp because they've never been presented with this opportunity to do whatever they wanted, right? And so there was questions, and everyone was confused. But in the end, everyone learned a lot more than if he was actually presented with like, here's what you do.
Well, I mean, like, look, let's use this class.
I have that written down.
I
It's the
learned.
next great example.
That is your next example.
Yeah.
I was gonna say like I learned more in this class doing something I was interested in doing and going to the book and finding personal connections than if I was told to write a 1,000-page book.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
instead of him giving us the topics to write a final paper on, we were given the freedom to read the course readings, read the book, and decide what we wanted to talk about.
And like, to be completely honest, if this class forced us to write an essay on the courses of total I've enjoyed, I'd probably do exactly what I knew you wanted to see. So, but since we're doing this podcast and it's fun and we're with our friends and everything, I think we're actually learning. We read everything, we read the text, we went through everything, and it was also a course where you could go to every class, you could go to no classes, and you'd still be fine because it's based on how much you actually want to learn in the class, which is a lot. The freedom of it
Which is
allows
funny,
you to
because
learn
at the very beginning, I was so skeptical.
with no structure. Yes,
but it worked out.
Yeah. All right. We're over time, but we're just gonna do one more quick topic here. So this is Plato's Cave. This is actually a deep topic, but we'll try and quickly go over it. So basically, the cave is this idea that your perception of reality is stuck in this metaphorical cave. And these prisoners were at the bottom, and they were forced to look at the wall of the cave with these shadows presented by the light of the fire on the cave, and that was their reality. So I think everyone sort of knows the basic metaphor of this, but so the question that we sort of had for this is, do you think it is possible for someone to fully escape the cave of their own limited perceptions and achieve a complete understanding of reality? Or is it always necessary to have rely on some form of interpretation or abstraction, such as like language or symbolism, to communicate our understanding of the world to others?
Good question. I think there has to be interpretation. Everyone's perspective is different. Everyone's ideas are different. Everyone's thoughts are different. Things like that. I think if everyone had the same idea, there was no personal interpretation, it'd be boring. There'd be no like uniqueness. There'd be no new ideas because everything would be everything would be static almost. Like nothing would really change, if you will. I think it's definitely necessary.
Yeah, and I discussed how I think given the conforming to like the norms of society, I think it's actually impossible to like escape the cave. I was saying like if you're on like social media and you're on your phone and you have a 9-to-5 job, I just don't think you have the actual like mental capacity to break out of the cave, as 99.9% of the world doesn't. I think if you're always listening to the stories of others and listening to what media tells you and what social media shows or whatever, you can't form your own opinions that are outside of the cave.
Yeah.
So it's always dragging you back down. And I think the next question for that was like, where do you think that cave lies?
So
in our world?
I had some thoughts on this, and I think a big part of it is education. So I think that is a big limitation to escaping
100%.
this metaphorical cave. I think traditional education is very structured, as we talked about, and it really offers most students the opportunity to develop the same way of thinking. So once completing post-secondary education, I would say most of us, to some extent, begin to see the world in a very similar way from what we've learned in school and what we've learned from just being in university for 4 years. Which, I think is very limiting to, I guess, discovering what this sort of outside world is, breaking free of the cave. I think it's hard to do so once going through extensive education.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you're locked in education system, any sort of system, I think if that's sort of been your world, I think it's really hard to escape out of that. I actually just one quick quote on this from someone that I was reading on their opinion of Plato's cave was that if anyone thinks you've escaped Plato's cave simply because you now understand the cave, then you do not understand the cave. Properly understood, Plato's cave is an example of Plato's cave. It is a story fed to you by Plato, like any other story fed to you by anyone else in the cave. It is meant to be revealing of the truth, but as a metaphor. It cannot literally be the truth. Understand the cave doesn't mean you've escaped it. It only means that you understand you are in it. You've turned your head to see the shadow puppets, but have not yet broken free of your chains. And with that, we'll end this episode. I'm glad everyone's confused, because I am so confused with everything. So yeah, we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.